Thank you. Oops. Thank you.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
There seems to be some kind of block party happening here. Welcome to our neighborhood. And I'm just so thrilled so many people are here and so appreciative. You are some really good citizens because it's a little cold out. But your hearts are warm and your hopes are high and you're here in great numbers, and I say thank you. Thank you for being here. I am so proud of Dante and Kiara. I have to tell you, this is one of those moments that a father can only dream of. To hear what they wrote, to see my son stand up here in front of everyone and express himself so strongly, I couldn't ask for anything more. And thank you. And I think you see now why I fell so deeply in love with Charlene McCray 21 years ago and why I fall more in love each year. Now, the house behind you has a certain lived-in quality to it. It ain't fancy, but for us it's priceless because it's where our children blossomed. It means everything to us. We've gone to another house, the schoolhouse we take our children to. And for that moment, that house is what's most important to us. Like millions of New Yorkers, our lives have revolved around our public schools. Nothing has had a greater impact on our family and its future. And our kids, they did everything. They played Little League in Prospect Park and at the parade grounds. They played their basketball games at MS 51. They learned the rules of life as generations of New Yorkers did before them in the playgrounds and schoolyards, where somehow this extraordinary, unlikely melting pot is rejuvenated year after year. And like so many parents, Charlene and I got involved with our kids' teams and the PTA. We knew it was our responsibility to help our kids in every way we could. Never in recent history has a New York City mayor served while having a child in our public schools. Well, I intend to rewrite that history this year. Not just for my kids, but for all our kids. I love this city deeply. I've been so honored to represent all 8.4 million New Yorkers as public advocate. But like so many New Yorkers, my heart belongs to my neighborhood. And we deserve a city government that actually believes in our neighborhoods and sees things the way we do. Now that may have seemed impossible in recent years. We've gotten so used to the elitists at City Hall that the notion of government of and for and by our neighborhoods may seem to have perished. And I have to say, I think maybe we've all gotten a little numb because our democracy has been repeatedly attacked by the power of money. In 2008, the backroom deal that led to the term limits change and the not so subtle use of Mayor Bloomberg's wealth. In 2009, the $112 million he spent on his reelection. In 2010, the horrendous Supreme Court decision, the Citizens United case. Is it any wonder that average citizens feel overshadowed? Now, if you live on 11th Street in Brooklyn or neighborhoods across our city, it feels like your voice doesn't matter to those in power. And if you live farther away from City Hall, the farther you live, the more you feel that way. Just ask residents of Breezy Point and Rockaway Park and Midland Beach and Coney Island how they felt in the months since Sandy hit. Ask them about the challenges they still face. I have served my neighbors and this city based on a few simple principles. Government must focus on the needs of families, must be the protector of neighborhoods, and must guard the people from the enormous power of moneyed interests. Now, my friends, it can be done, but not by elected leaders alone. It requires average New Yorkers who simply refuse to allow their community voices to be stifled. It's their spirit that I intend to sweep into City Hall. A spirit that shouts that all boroughs were created equal. And that all our residents matter. And that's why today, here on my block in Brooklyn, I proudly declare my candidacy for mayor of New York City. Let me tell you about my journey to this moment. And there's some parts of it that are painful for me. My father served his country in the Army in World War II. I have to tell you, he served with great heroicness. He was wounded and lost a leg in the Battle of Okinawa. Came back physically scarred and emotionally scarred. He came back with what we now know as post-traumatic stress disorder, but they didn't call it that then, they didn't understand it, they didn't treat it. And his life got harder. He became an alcoholic, and it's tough to talk about. He couldn't hardly fend for himself or provide for himself, and he certainly could not provide for his family. So I was 7, my parents split up. And I didn't get some of those moments any child would like to have with his father. But my mother and her sisters gave me all the love and support I needed. You see, I was raised by a mother who instilled in me a passion for justice and a belief in the power of education to light a young life. And she was the daughter of 2 immigrants from small towns in southern Italy. And they went through a lot too, and she always taught me to be strong no matter what life throws at you. And I wish, of course, they both could be here today. That led me, that grounding, those teachings led me to a lifetime in public service and community activism, to being first a grassroots organizer and then a young staffer for Mayor Dinkins. And then I took up the fight for affordable housing. I went to work for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development during the Clinton administration. I served under Secretary Andrew Cuomo. And it was an agency with a lot of trouble itself. It had its share of scandals and needed to be turned around. And we had to do a lot with very little, but we did it because it was so important to get affordable housing to those who needed it. We made that agency work. And then Hillary Rodham Clinton asked me to serve as her campaign manager for her first run for U.S. Senate. And we built a grassroots organization all over this state. And it was built on the simple idea that our families and our children needed the strongest possible voice in the U.S. Senate. And we won that race. Around the same time, I joined our local school board here in District 15. And I started waging an uphill battle for parents. And it's been an unrelenting struggle for me. Because the truth is that parents are the first and last teachers of their children. And we've got to get government to understand that once and for all. In the City Council, I passed legislation to protect affordable housing. I made sure that the council made childcare a budget priority, because that's what working families need. I fought and won new efforts to prevent child abuse and homelessness. And I'm very proud to say that I led the opposition to Mayor Bloomberg's plan to change term limits.
Yes!
Now, we know now that Mayor Bloomberg's backroom deal overturned the will of the voters. And we lost that fight to his deep pockets. But at the same time, we fought hard and we honored the belief that democracy bends to no one man. And here we are after 12 long years. And here's the truth. Our city isn't living up to its potential, not by a long shot. This mayor's policies have been very good for some in our city. But so many middle-class New Yorkers have been ignored and priced out. New Yorkers know. They just yearn for a city of good schools and good jobs. And they need a leader in City Hall that knows we only succeed if we leave no New Yorker behind. And we simply cannot sustain this status quo. But I don't ignore the fact that this mayor has also done some good and important things that need to be continued. I agree with his stances on public health, his fight against smoking and obesity. I agree with the work he's done nationally on immigration reform, gun control, climate change. I applaud it. I agree with his effort to win mayoral control of education. These policies must be continued. But on a whole range of other issues, he simply failed. And those who would seek to continue those policies are destined to fail millions of New Yorkers as well. So let's be honest about where we are today. This is a place that in too many ways has become a tale of two cities. A place where City Hall has too often catered to the interests of the elite rather than the needs of everyday New Yorkers. 1 in 5 of our fellow New Yorkers lives in poverty, and that's not acceptable. Too many working parents lack the basics, childcare and after-school programs they can afford, paid sick days they need. Because no New Yorker, and there's 1 million people in this category, no New Yorker should have to choose between going to work when they're deeply sick or staying home and losing a day's pay they can't afford to lose, or maybe even losing their job. That should not be happening in New York City in 2013, and I will change that. Working parents lack so many times just a living wage and all the basics for raising a family. Our small businesses, Charlene mentioned the mom and pop stores we so deeply love in this neighborhood and all neighborhoods. Small businesses are battling red tape and unnecessary fines. They have been for years now, and they simply can't create jobs because of policies created by this government. Police-community relations are strained to a dangerous point in many of our neighborhoods. Now, as we embark upon this decision in our city, I remind us all, of course, New York City has a long tradition being a Democratic town. But there are real differences among the Democratic candidates. And the choice we make among them will define our future. There are some who believe that Mayor Bloomberg's policies from the past 12 years just need to be tweaked here and there, and that his vision should continue more or less uninterrupted for the next 4 years. There are others who practice a politics of the moment, who are heroic in election years, but not engaged in the day-to-day fight to save our neighborhoods when their names aren't on the ballot. I have a different point of view. I will be a mayor for our neighborhoods every day. I will work relentlessly for our neighborhoods, for good, clean, safe, strong neighborhoods in all 5 boroughs where families can start businesses and raise kids and find housing they can actually afford. And this neighborhood perspective comes to me naturally because Charlene and I have built our lives around it. all the issues we face. They're personal to me. We have a broken stop and frisk policy in this city. So many young men of color are unfairly targeted. It's not an abstraction to me. I'll state the obvious. I know it could happen to my own son. And it's not fair that hundreds of thousands of law-abiding New Yorkers have been stopped and frisked, and that doesn't make us safer. And that's why I fought so hard for reform. Now, over the last few years, we've seen a mayor who spent a lot of time demonizing teachers. We saw a mayor choose a school's chancellor more for her social status than her educational experience. And I knew that was holding back our school system. And I thought about my own daughter's education hanging in the balance, and the education of over 1 million other children. And that's why I fought for change at the Department of Education. And it's personal to me when a homeowner gets a huge and unfair water bill, one they can't afford and have no real way to appeal. Because as you can see, I'm a homeowner too. And that's why I've challenged this unfair city policy on behalf of all homeowners. And it's personal to me when a mother or father tries to protect their child's health, but has an unscrupulous landlord who doesn't give them heat or hot water. And that's why I started the Worst Landlords Watch List and helped tenants to organize. I think you deserve a mayor who takes these issues personally. In my city hall, all 5 boroughs will matter. We'll focus on the vast majority of teachers who are devoted and can become more effective with the right support, not obsess over the small percentage who should choose another profession. We'll respect small businesses as the job creation engines every neighborhood needs. We'll use every economic tool at our city's disposal to get our people back to work. And we'll bring police and communities together so cops and residents alike will be safer. And we'll ask the very wealthiest to help our children out, to pay a little more in taxes so we can finally achieve universal early education and after-school programs that will keep our children safe and on the right path. Our city will thrive and better compete on the global stage when all our children have real educational opportunity. My friends, if you agree and are ready to work hard for change, then there's no better time to start than today. Are you ready? I can't hear you. Are you ready? Are you ready? Thank you all for your support and your energy and your belief in this great city. Together we will build a better New York for all. God bless you, and God bless all the people of New York City. Thank you.